Shalom, this is Saint Jadiel from Saints of Israel. All right, happy Feast of Dedication. All right, and the Feast of Dedication is from tonight, November 24th, 2020, to Tuesday, December 1st of 2020. All right, so real quick, I'm going to go over, the basics of what the Feast of Dedication is. All right, and that Christ himself celebrated it. He didn't celebrate Thanksgiving and he didn't celebrate Christmas. All right, but you can find in scriptures in John chapter 10, verse 22 and 23 that he celebrated the Feast of Dedication. Okay, in fact, let's get that. This is the book of John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. Okay, so it's winter time. All right, he's not. So notice, it's not saying he celebrated his birthday. It's not saying he celebrated Christmas. It's not saying he celebrated Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm going to read it again. This is the book of John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Okay, and remember, Jesus, Yahweh Shai, is a descendant of King Solomon in the flesh. Okay? All right. Solomon was the son of King David. All right? And Christ descended from King Solomon. All right? In the flesh. Okay? So you see here that he celebrated the Feast of Dedication, not Christmas. Okay? Now, what is the Feast of Dedication? All right. The Feast of Dedication was when Judah Maccabees, or Judah's Maccabees, and his brothers rededicated the temple after the victory over the heathens, okay, the other nations, particularly the Greeks, okay. But what happened to the temple in the first place? Okay, we're going to go to First Maccabees chapter 3. Start at verse 45. There's the book of First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 45. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. Meaning what? The Israelites were exiled out of there. Right? The sanctuary also was trodden down. And aliens, meaning what? The other nations, right? Particularly the Greeks, the Edomite Greeks, that is, the so-called white people, Caucasians, right? The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place. The heathen are the non-Israelites, all right? The people who are not Israelites, all right? The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha over against Jerusalem. For Maspha was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. All right, so that's what was going on. Yeah, these heathens that took over our temple. Okay. Now, what was it that Judah's Maccabees and his brothers, what were they determined to do? Gonna jump up a few verses. First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 43. They said one to another, let us restore the decayed estate of our people, and let us fight for our people and the sanctuary. All right, so that's what the Maccabees brothers, these Israelites from the tribe of Levi, all right, that's what they were determined to do. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 35. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went unto Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers. And having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. All right. So the Feast of Dedication is about cleansing and rededicating the temple to the Most High God. Okay. All right. Verse 37. Upon this, all the host assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Sion. All right. Now I'm going to go to, let's see. First Maccabees 4, verse 56. There's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 56. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Okay, verse 59. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by the space of 8 days. So we celebrate this 8 days every year. Okay. From the 25th day of the month, Caslu, that was the name of the month back then, because back then there was no November, December, January, February. Those were implemented by the Greeks and Romans. Okay. Before then, we had different names for our months. Okay. Now let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 18. Second Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 18. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple, purified from what? Purified from all the heathens and their abominations. Okay? Because the temple was meant for us Israelites, keeping the Most High God's laws. All right? But the heathens went in there with their wickedness, with their idols, with their abominations, all right, and defiled it. So the Maccabees brothers, right, led by Judas, went in there and cleaned it up, okay, for the Most High God, that is, all right. Second Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 18. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month, Caslu, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it, as the feast of the tabernacles. So keep it like you would the feast of the tabernacles, right? I mean, as far as like the modern days, okay? And of the fire, which was given us when who's Nehemiah, offered sacrifice. After that, he had built the temple and the altar. All right, so I hope you have a basic understanding now of what the Feast of Dedication is. All right. So, shalom and be blessed in the Most High in Christ the Black Messiah. Happy Feast of Dedication.